Thank you for that. So we're going to record this session as well, just for everybody else to go back and refer to it. Quick one, I am Kunal, one of the members of the learning team at ICF Bangalore chapter. I think somebody's on unmute. I will request everybody to go on mute so that there are no background noises. The second request to all of you is just to have your cameras on and make this discussion as interactive as possible. Yeah. So we plan to do this session, cover everything about Gallup Strengths and MBTI. Just to give you others who are joining today a bit of a background, that we are hosting these series of psychometric webinars where we are introducing different tools in the psychometric space. We covered Enneagram last time, and we've also done Lumia Sparks as well. And now this is the third one where we are covering Gallup Strengths and MBTI. Next week, Mohit, who's our presenter today, will again come back and present about another tool which is called Strong Inventory. It's a very, very interesting tool for career coaches. So do look out for that notice as well. So very quickly, before we start the session, I want to thank Mohit for making time today, taking out time and being with us. Mohit, thank you so much for being there. Mohit and I go back more than 11 years. We work together. So Mohit is a dear friend and a dear colleague as well. So hence I decided to sort of request Mohit to take out time for this. He's based in Gurgaon, and he has more than 20 years of training experience. He's an organizational development leader, has worked extensively with Nielsen as well, and where he was managing geographies across not just India, but Asia Pacific, Middle East, and bunch of other markets as well. I think Mohit goes with the stats that he has trained more than 16,000 people till date. And we used to be a big fan of Mohit at Nielsen, where we would say, Mohit, this is the topic, and you need to build something overnight or over a week's time. And Mohit would go back into his kitchen and cook something, and then bring out an amazing, recipe in terms of training, which would address our business needs. So that's I think should sum up about Mohit's expertise. In terms of his specializations, I think it's many, but to name a few, he is a certified Gallup Strengths coach. He is a certified MBTI coach, and he's also a certified Strong Inventory coach. What does certified means? That he is not just trained, but he also has the license and authority to conduct these tests within India, and also sort of receive results and benchmarks along with that from the respective organizations which hold these own these tests as well. Right now, Mohit is it's the partner at his firm, which is called Triguna, which is an OD firm into training, into HR consulting, and a bunch of other things as well. And apart from this, he's also he heads the chapter for Gurugram for HR Success Talk. HR Success Talk is a community of HR leaders which boasts for having more than 125,000 community members today. So yes, so he similar to ICF chapters, HR Success Talk also has many chapters. So I will request Mohit to take over and sort of help us all understand what is Gallup Strengths, what is MBTI, and also sort of help the ICF coaches here to see how they can augment their coaching skills with these tools, and sort of for them to take a call as to how they can take it forward. Coaches, if you have any questions, please to put them in the chat window. We will take it up intermittently or towards the end. But yeah, keep them coming. Over to you, Mohit. You're on mute. Mohit, you're on mute. Yeah.
I hope now you're able to hear me well.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kunal, for such a extended welcome and such a setup. It makes me nervous whenever I'm introduced this way, because I believe that you must start low or introduce low so that you can at least set pace. Now that you've introduced me with such a high expectation, I'm nervous actually. I was not that nervous before coming to the session. Suddenly, when I looked at the window and I saw the experienced people sitting on this one, I'm really now nervous as to what is there that I can actually explore with all of you. So, well, let me go back to building it on the strengths. And I was just sharing it on a chat with Kunal that my strength is actually facilitation. So I will use to that, and so what I would do is I would request everyone to please share what is it that you would like to take out of this session today. What are your specific questions? What are you trying to get out of any of these instruments? What questions would you like to solve in coaching that you feel maybe would be solved by this? And of course, I will introduce you to the mechanics of it as well. But please do put your questions ahead so that it can become easier for me to navigate the conversation. And that might even give me some confidence to even lead the session, because right now I really see that there's a lot of years of experience sitting on this panel, including a person who has coached me. In fact, two of those people who've coached me. One is, of course, Kunal himself, and the other one is Aditya. Aditya has also been my coach during transition, and I'm very indebted to having worked with him. So yeah, let's look forward to your questions. How to combine, I'm getting some of these, how to combine MBTI and Gallup Strengths. Yes, been wonderful. Thank you so much, Rupi. How can these tools catalyze transformation of individuals? Okay, integrating the tools with coaching practice. Thank you, Narayan. And Srinivas, you're saying how MBTI would augment my coaching credentials. Okay. When to use what? Absolutely, Krishna. When to use what? Those are critical questions that we all deal with. Which scenarios are most suitable for what to use for when? Okay, I have sort of answered some of these questions in the deck that I will share with you, and I will also be very happy to share the deck eventually with everyone as an outcome of this session. So Kunal will have that in a PDF copy, and you can use that. In fact, I will send a PPT version because I've included some links in this one, which you can open at your own will, and then you can see the following or the other useful links that will help you to decode. So how do you differentiate between other strength tools? Okay, Michael, I will need some information from you as to which tools you're perceiving, and then we will look at. And Shailesh, you're saying you're a Gallup certified coach. If I need to pick up another skill, which one would you propose? Lumina, Spark. Okay. I would definitely try answering that question as we go through. So thank you for starting off with a wonderful list of questions. This also tells me that the group is highly engaged. So without taking too much of time, let me dive right in, as Kunal's already set me up. And thank you so much, Shanti and Kunal, both for setting this session up. Really, really glad to be a part of this one. Okay, so let's get going. Bengaluru chapter, very happy to work with all of you on the Gallup Strengths. I'm going to start my session today with focusing on Clifton Strengths. Yeah. Gallup Clifton Strengths has got loads of very good books as well. By the way, I'm just going to pull some from my rack. Okay. And you can see I've got strengths-based leadership, strengths-based selling. And then there is another Gallup book that you'd get, the Gallup Strengths 2.0, which I will show you as well. So there are several books that you will get to see from the house of Don Clifton Strengths. Donald Clifton, the father of positive psychology, was the one who was behind the Clifton Strengths. And before I go and talk a lot about what Clifton Strengths is all about, and how does it work, how does it play, how does the positive psychology work in this case, let me play a little video that will give you a quick glimpse into Clifton Strengths. And let me know if you're able to hear the audio playback of the video. I've just clicked it to get started. Kunal, I hope you're able to hear some audio back.
Is zillion a real number? No, zillion's not a real number, but it is a word you might be tempted to use to describe all of the talents found in people. Creating a list of every talent is an impossible task. But if you step back, you'll see that talents have commonalities that allow us to group them into themes. Some talents, like a natural ability to share thoughts, create engaging stories, and find the perfect word, relate directly to communication. That's what they have in common, a shared theme based on communication. So to begin thinking and talking about them, we can call them communication talents. Your distinct Clifton Strengths 34 profile sets you apart from everyone else. Your Clifton Strengths 34 profile is your talent DNA in rank order based on your responses to the Clifton Strengths assessment. The Clifton Strengths at the top of your profile are the most powerful. Similar to your fingerprint, these themes represent how you are uniquely talented. There are nearly 34 million possible combinations of top 5 themes. You heard right, nearly 34 million. Start with your top 5. Develop these Clifton Strengths to make the most of your profile and maximize your potential. Your greatest chance to succeed at work or anywhere else lies in strengthening what you naturally do best and doing more of it. Try this. First, name it. Carefully read the descriptions of each of your top 5 Clifton Strengths themes and identify parts of the theme descriptions that are undeniably you. Try to describe a recent situation when you used each theme. Next, claim it. Reflect on who you are. Think about your experiences, your motivations, how you see yourself. Then, consider how your strongest Clifton Strengths shape you, what you do, how you do it, and why. Share your report with people close to you. Ask for their reaction. Then, aim it. Post your top 5 themes from page 22 of your Clifton Strengths 34 report in a place where you'll see them every day. Start with the suggestions for action in the report. Then, try to find more ways to use your strongest Clifton Strengths in your daily activities. Your talents are an instinctive source of wisdom and power. And as you start to intentionally use your most dominant Clifton Strengths themes, you'll find ways to build on your greatest areas of potential. You have dynamic talents, just waiting to be unlocked and developed. Use your report to name, claim, and aim your most dominant Clifton Strengths themes.
All right. I'm hoping that you were able to hear the audio playback really well.
Yes, it was fine, Mohit.
Fantastic. Okay, great. All right. So I'll just pause over here for a second or so just to kind of ask you for your reactions to the video. Anything that stood out for you from the video that is worth your experience sharing? Would you like to share on the chat window, or would you like to talk about it? Anything that stood out for you?
I think very a focus on positive psychology, right? We're kind of building on the strengths more than focusing on the where somebody falls short.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for me, it's diversity of how you think, feel, and behave. So that's how Gallup defines talent.
Yeah.
Using it, it matures to become strength. So 34 million was the thing used. So the chance that another human being has all 34 in the same order is, I think, 1 times 256.
34 million. Yeah.
10 power 36 or some crazy numbers.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Mohit, if I, Krish here, just a quick one, if I may, that sometimes it just made one thought that crossed my mind as I was listening to this thing was that possibly you're getting into a kind of Pygmalion effect here, right? So I'm taking a slightly skeptical view. So please see if you can be inclusive of that. And
please.
And I'll appreciate if you could kind of even share your viewpoint on that. See, there is a dichotomy in my head about using psychometrics in general. Are they typing people, putting them in boxes, and in some ways putting them into what I would call as quote unquote self-limiting beliefs? Because the minute I hear this is my strength, and to boot, you're asking me to put it in a prominent, as in the presentation asks me to put it in a prominent place, that I look at it, I meditate on it, I reflect on it, I internalize it, I kind of, get to believe it, auto-suggest that those are my strengths, and then work on it. So obviously, even if they truly aren't very reflective of my strengths, but somewhere if it connects to a certain logic in my head, then it becomes it starts to have that Pygmalion effect of some sort I'm creating for myself. So that's one way I look at not just this, but psychometrics in general.
Yeah.
And then there is the other thing that it can't be completely valueless. So to be very honest, I'm at this thought process in my head. What should I really go with in my own head?
Yep.
Right. And so therefore,
I can share a lot from my own experience.
Does this actually get into a self-reinforcing, auto-suggestive, Pygmalion kind of impact on yourself?
Very interesting. Yep.
That's just a thought I wanted to share that's what crossed my mind when I was listening to this little clip.
Thank you for being very open.
This clip was thought-provoking. Yes, thank you for that. So Mohit would appreciate, anybody else wants to respond, I would deeply appreciate your responses, your experiences, insights. Thank you.
So I will definitely try sharing my experiences, and I will definitely welcome everyone's inputs as well on this one as we unfold the deck. And some of the questions that you've asked have been answered already. So I will share my perspective, and then I'll welcome everyone's views as well on this. Yeah. So let's keep going. And thank you for the questions, and thank you for the reactions. Anyone else who wants to share any further reactions before we move ahead? Yep. Okay. So Donald Clifton was the one who really found this particular theory of positive psychology. His quote was, "What will happen if we think about what is right with people than fixing on what is wrong with them?" And as positive psychology theory goes, Don Clifton found that, okay, let us look at the top talent themes or strengths, and I will distinguish between the two in a minute, amongst people. Even if they could spend a year just perfecting those talent themes, a year, literally 365 days, that's good enough as a beginning. And that sort of wedges into the point that you picked up, Krish, which is that, is it going to put something in the label or in the head of the coachee that I'm coaching with that, oh, this is already my good strength, and therefore I don't need to worry about it, and this is something that I've already achieved. So I've arrived in context of these particular talent themes. So there is a context that this theory works with, that even if the person takes one full year consciously becoming capable about their talent themes, then it is a good enough practice done. So at this point, let me also tell you something about the instrument in specifics, which will help you to understand the mechanics of this one. So, and that's not on the slides right now. I will send you some literature, or you can also look at it up on the Gallup's website. I thought I'll bring some of the other conceptual inputs which will help you to coach and use this instrument a lot more. So those are some of the things that I've captured on the slides. So factor this. We call this report as a strengths report that you get as a coach, but it is actually a talents report. Now, what is the difference between talent and strength? Now, those of you who are certified on Gallup, you'd know it. Shalish, for example. Talent is a recurring pattern of thinking, feeling, behaving. It's actually the trait-based theory. And the trait-based theory basically says that anything that becomes a recurring pattern of thinking, feeling, behaving is what represents what you're naturally good at. So when you respond to those 177 questions over here, you're basically indicating that this is where I can build my solid strength. And these could be areas of communication, strategic, analytical, focus, or either of these particular words. There are 34 of these words. Now, they picked up words from English to describe what commonly these talent themes could look like. And some of these words give people a misconception. And Krish, this is where I'm also answering one of these questions, that a lot of people who I coach come to me, I really miss that strategic talent theme on the top. I really thought if it could come to the top, I would get this next promotion or this next role. Because leadership requires people to be strategic, and strategic is there in a couple of my friends' top 5 talent themes, but it doesn't exist in mine. How can I bring strategic on top? Well, hate to tell you that these were words of English that they had to use to describe and settle somewhere at least. And that's where they picked up words like strategic. Now, strategic's got nothing to do with strategy building or the person's ability to be a strategic leader. These are just words that were described, that were used to basically describe a certain thing. So this is one of the ways to actually settle this with your coachee, that look, while I'm going to tell you something about your talent themes, you must recognize and understand this with a pinch of salt, that strategic won't make you strategic, analytical won't get you an analytical job, and learner will not get you a L&D job. By the way, my 34 talent themes, okay, if anybody was to look at the learner for that matter as the evaluation criteria to bring people on L&D jobs, then I will never get this role, because my learner is number 29th. Yeah. So they also say that you do not use strengths as a tool to evaluate and bring people aboard. So it's not a selection tool, it's a developmental tool. So you don't use this for selection or promotion. You just use it to discover what the person is naturally talented at. Now, what is this natural talented is all about? When you're able to discover with your coachee their recurring patterns of thinking, feeling, behaving in an unconscious state, in the daily, everyday way, you realize that most of their decisions to any simulation given to them, whether it comes in form of a leadership decision-making, whether it comes in form of coaching team members, whether it comes in form of taking calls, they will always be inclined, most likely, to those 5 top lenses that they wear on their eye. So somebody who's got strategic would most of the time be looking at those patterns and information. Somebody who's got communication will always be thinking in words and phrases and would like to clarify and will want to speak it out more often. Somebody who's got deliberative would obviously want to thrash out every single decision to death before making a decision. Somebody who's got, let us say, achiever would want to just burn the candle from both the ends till it fuses, would do so much of hard work every single day that, it wouldn't come to close of the day at all for that person. In fact, working more and working harder is more energy for people who have achiever. So how does this distinguish people? What does it do for them? You first land at the concept of talent, saying, well, these are your recurring patterns of thinking, feeling, behaving. Most of the time, you'll make decisions using this. Now that you've read the report, you become conscious about your talent themes. Let us do something in your life that you apply them in a conscious way and you build them into strengths. I use an analogy typically, and we have all seen Ramayana and Mahabharata as we were growing up, right? So we all remember the time when Ramji or Lakshmanji would go and then they will evoke, a barn or a weapon on their dhanush, right? So that is exactly what you can do when you convert the talent into strength. That whenever you want a certain theme to come in and work for you, it does come to your rescue and you're able to use it to unlock your highest potential. So that is when the talent turns into strength. So the report says that, look, you've got the natural abilities in these areas. You have a lot of potential to build strength in these. So don't take it to your head right now. Take it in form of a view, and with constant practice around your objectives, when you bring more and more opportunities to yourself to consciously apply what you're learning from this, then you become a solid strength master of sorts. So the formula that Clifton Strengths prescribes to its coaches is talent multiplied by effort converts into strengths. Yeah. And that's where the coaching opportunity lies. For us as coaches, it becomes a wonderful opportunity to take a person from talent, which is a positive psychology base, something that they already like to hear, know, and relate with. And the relationship and interpretation is spot on for so many coaches that I've coached. The journey from being their subconscious to bringing it into their conscious is where your effort comes in. And that's a wonderful opportunity where you can question them about their experience, where are they headed, how can they do these applications more often. And that is where the tools application comes in. Now, I am also a coach, and when I coach others, I realize when you take a look at any of these instruments, you tend to typecast them or box them, etc. Well, if the coaches know about this, it becomes sort of easier for those coaches who are practicing with various instruments and who are really clued into the client's objective to stay a little abridged from there. Well, you do find a lot of value when coaching or a coachee is stuck at a point. To unlock that, you utilize these. The answers lie somewhere in those. And you do ask your coachee that, does the coachee realize or does the coachee see the role of their talent theme or the role of the interpretation of their report in any way connected to the way they make their decisions? And it works like a brilliant reflection instrument. So I feel as coaches, if we use these instruments for more of reflection than announcing to them that, boy, you're here, you're this, you're that, then yes, it's a different story. Now I'll take a little pause and I'll try answering some of your questions. I see, Krish, your hands up.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Mohit, for calling me up. So basically, you said that, and Shailesh has tried to answer that question here in the comments section, but I still will ask my question. Let me summarize. You're saying that a strength as defined in the context of the Clifton Strengths Finder context is that it is a recurring pattern of thoughts, feelings, and actions.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
And therefore, that then constitutes what one might call a strength.
No, that constitutes its talent.
Talent. And talent multiplied by
effort leads to strength. Now, what is strength? Strength is the recurring pattern. Near perfect performance every time at will. So if you want to go to near perfect performance every time at will, which is what our coaching objectives are usually in it. We want to get the coachee to move from A to B of where they see their goals moving from A to B. So in their visualization of B, most of the time they are looking at the best outcome of their own. So to get to that near perfect performance every time, but at will. So I won't succumb to communication, but I'll use communication when it is needed most. I won't succumb to analytical, but I'll actually use my analytical to fuel an objective. I won't succumb to deliberative by being delayed, but I'd rather use deliberative to make myself successful.
Yeah, makes sense. So that's one thing. So now, having said that, now having defined it thus, and then you use the word effort. By effort, I suppose you mean practice.
It means practice. It means bringing your objectives. It means bringing such tasks to your fore that gives you the opportunity for applying these talent themes in context of the world that you are in.
So effectively, you're saying you keep applying the talent that you have, that the Strength Finder brings up and shows up, right? Surfaces, keep applying it. And that is when it converts into a strength.
Okay, so yeah, that is true. That is true, Krish.
And strength is defined as the ability to apply the talent at will, pretty much like that. almost subconsciously, you could say. Did I get that right?
Okay, let me give you two maybe inputs in here.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at a talent theme and you say achiever, arranger, belief, consistency, deliberative, whatever, you don't go applying just achiever, consistency, arranger, communication.
Mm-hmm.
You, of course, multiply this with effort, and effort is really the objective. So you look at, in my objective, for example, today, I have top 5 talent themes in which one of them is communication, another is restorative, which is problem solving. It is on me now to choose as to, in this particular session, which one am I going to use? Communication is going to be default. But can I look for opportunity to be restorative? Because with using my restorative, my problem solver, I might be more useful to you than being just a great communicator. So the ability to apply whichever talent theme is best used in this objective. When I do that, I'm able to shuffle between that. Okay, I'm not going to always tell myself I'm the most strategic and therefore I'm the best leader. I'm going to actually choose that in this particular task, a talent theme B is more useful than talent theme A. Yep. So that conscious knowledge comes through a lot more coaching, and you are mostly ingrained towards the efforts need than the name of your talent theme. And eventual result is that, yes, your talent converts into your strengths. So you are more and more known for, okay, that this person, when you give him the job for X, he does it very well. When you give him the job for Y, she does it extremely well. And that's how you apply it.
So the real question, the crux of what I was trying to ask you, what I would like to ask you here is that question number 1, do these talent themes change over time? Or are they more or less fixed? If
more or
they
less
are
fixed, more or less fixed. They
more
don't
or less
change
fixed.
over a period
If
of
they
time.
are, at what age or what stage can we take them as fixed? Can I apply this to, say, for example, a teenager at the age of 15 and expect that they will stay fixed? Can I apply them to a kid at 12? Can I apply them to a teenager at 18 or 21? Or do I have to wait till 30? What is that age or that stage where you can deem that these talent themes become fixed?
15.
At about 15.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Second, is that, okay, fine. So I'm not going to debate that. I mean, let's not worry about, because that gets into the research part of why it's fixed.
So then
why
we'll
it's
not go there, yes.
So let's not get there right now. Let's take it as it is. That's how it's defined and that's how it is. Now, having said that, let's look at the other aspect of applying this, the talent themes. Now, talent themes, you say they are fixed. Let's accept that now. Having accepted that and know that these are talent themes that someone, if applied consciously, if someone makes an effort and applies this consciously, it becomes a very strong strength. It becomes a really solid strength, so to say, right? They can apply at will like that, okay? That said, now, I have this doubt. Why can't I then use the talent themes as, I mean, of course, I have to assume that I understand the words correctly. When you say strategic or communicator or whatever, right? The words have to be understood because strategic is a very, very broad word.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, broader than the broadest of highways that you can ever imagine.
Yes.
Right? So one has to be very careful there to understand the context of that word in the context of the strength finder and how it's defined. But assuming that one understands it that way, I'm a professional, let's say, who's been trained to understand that and interpret it. Then what is the harm in using it to choose someone that matches my need in the job? I have a job or a role that predominantly requires that talent theme that gives the person an opportunity to apply that talent theme repeatedly in that job and develop his strengths. Why not?
Okay.
Or promote a person for that.
Yeah, you've got a very, very interesting point. So I'll tell you what I learned and I found and I'm seeing in the experience of my coaching as well. But let me ask a question from Bhaktiyar as well. Bhaktiyar, I think your hand's been raised for a while. And if there is anybody else who has one more or two more questions, I'll just answer all of them. So Krish, I'm just taking your question here. Why can't I use it for selection? But I'm just pausing for Bhaktiyar's question.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just reflecting on the last question and your answer, that you're more or less fixed at age 15. And what about brain being flexible and growing over age and being a learner for life kind of thing, you know. Don't people change over time?
Yeah. So let me answer this as well. When I say fixed, it doesn't mean that this is like cast in stone, that number one can't be number two can't be number three. It can change. Gallup says that our top 10 talent themes are our most dominant talent themes. So these are 34 clubbed into top 10 dominant, and then the lesser, and then finally the least talent themes, which are like 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. Now, when you will take another retest, you'll realize some of these may change. And that happens to all psychometric instruments most of the time, you know. Now, having said that, your 10 typically will remain the same. They may just move a number here or there. So that is where the fixedness is not that fixed, that every time you will take the test to just prove the test, you might have different results. That I can tell you, this will change a bit. But largely your 10 will remain your 10. They may just move up or down a bit. That's number one. That's where it accommodates for life changes, that it accommodates for altering situations in life, etc. Now, coming to Krish, your point on the choice of using this instrument for recruitment, or for that matter, role promotions, etc. Talent, when we say recurring pattern of thinking, feeling, and behaving, any individual will find it extremely engaging for them to do this role or any task that is associated with their talent themes. Okay. Now, obviously, if, for example, communication is my top talent theme, I will find communicating as very relieving, very relaxing, rather very energizing. Whenever I'll get the opportunity to communicate, I'll find it extremely energizing. However, I must recognize that most of these traits that I'm getting, any of these traits or any combination, I can use to engage myself. Will I be interested in doing a job? For example, I might be most happy communicating, but communications used more both in teaching as well as in, let us say, selling. Where will I be happy eventually? That is decided by my professional interests. So this is where one of the routes to take is that, okay, if I were to really look at where am I interested in, that's where the interest theory is something that one should explore. And then now coming on to recruiters, the recruiter's need is I must pick up a talent who's got the greatest potentials in terms of competency. So is this person competent at doing this particular thing, or is this person just happy doing this? I might be very happy doing communication, but when it comes to writing text and writing articles, I might be the worst because maybe my English is all over. So maybe the role that I must get should be connected to the competence I demonstrate at that role. And there are instruments that test competence more suitably. And this instrument really tests whether you'll be most happy and engaged and when. So we recommend, when people look at coaching, we always say, hey, bring more opportunities within your role. And in fact, you can do any role in the world having any top 5 talent themes, because that is how it happens. If you just focus on developing your talents really well, whichever role you're doing, you will find more joy in it and you will find more action in it. There are certain parts of your role you'll not be able to do, and that is which is your lesser talent theme. For example, deliberative for me, or empathy for me can be a little lower. Yeah. So I will need to be nudged over there. Now, if a role requires me to demonstrate empathy a lot, it's not that I can't. What I will do is I will find alternative ways. And I'll give you an example. In my role, I need to learn a lot usually, but I use my restorative as a problem solver to motivate myself to learn something new. I don't naturally go to learning on its own. So if you understand your role well, and if your coach is guiding you very well, and if you're guiding yourself as well, then you'll find immense power in discovering the route to go there. Now, why is it important? It can be very confusing as well. Why is it important? Is because, one, of the simplicity of this tool, and second, the potential of somebody being happier after doing this way of work is very high. You really find that after a coaching session, a person really comes back and reports to you that, my joy of doing the same thing has increased because I've just started using some of my natural talent themes. And I couldn't have changed my role. I couldn't have changed my boss. I couldn't have changed my team member. But what I've realized is that I could have really put in some of my own natural talent themes out here. Yeah, so that is some of my answers to the questions. I have Ananta Narayan and Amitava waiting for the question. So may I request you to please ask your question and then we can move to the next one. I see it's 7:15.
Okay.
Kunal,
It's a
just give me a time check on this as well, please.
Yeah, I think we have MBTI also to cover.
Yeah.
So
So,
I'll just
we can have these questions and then quickly transition to the next
I'll
one.
just take a clarification for Krishna. I did the Strength Finder in 2008 and I did it again in 2008 in two different roles. 2008, I was a high flyer at Microsoft. 2018, I was a consultant. The 5 strengths of mine just got reordered.
Yeah.
Okay. And I have done it with another colleague of mine. Both of us are in similar fields. His reordering happened up to 7.
Yeah.
So the strengths remain the same because that's the personality style you have sort of, it becomes your DNA. So, and then to use a very light way of looking at it, if I have to win, I will use my strengths the way. So like you said, restorative, I will use that because eventually I want to achieve the outcome.
Yeah.
I may achieve it differently, you may achieve it differently, but both of us will use the way we are used to using our strengths.
Yeah.
That's all. I'll rest my case because I know we are running out of time.
Yeah. And it is very natural for human beings to go back to what they're naturally talented at. You can't stop yourself from looking at the world from these 5 lenses. Amitava, please go ahead.
Yeah, Mohit, this is very interesting, but my question would be so complex and will take time. So I'll rest my question here, and maybe I'll send it to Kunal, and maybe he could help me get the answer.
You could please let us know about your question, and I'd love to respond to it. Yeah,
it's very interesting.
I'll quickly take you through the rest of the slides. Otherwise, Kunal will kill me for not having
it's
remaining content. But yeah.
So as just a participant suggestion, so many interesting viewpoints, so much of very interesting insights coming in here. I mean, I don't think this webinar is going to do justice to all of it. We need, I think, 2x, 3x. So would you, gentlemen, mind sharing your contacts so then we can engage in a conversation?
Yes,
we'll do.
Where we can
Krishna will do. That
for some time at least, so we get some of these things clarified. Very, very interesting. Very, very amazing webinar, I must say, so far, at least for me. And thanks everybody for being a part of this, especially Mohit, Kunal. So
will do. Krishna will do. Will do.
Yeah.
All right. Very quickly, some of the facts about the instrument. It's a trait-based theory or a trait-based instrument. So usually the trait-based instruments measure how much or how little does a client exhibit. So when you will look at the questions will be, are you mostly this or are you least this? So when you scale on a Likert scale, the outcome is a normal distribution. And this is what this instrument is like. So you will always say that this person has that higher trait or lower trait. 177 questions, it takes 35 minutes to 45 minutes. If anybody asks you, where is the distributor? The only single source for providing Gallup assessment is gallup.com. Anything else is not really valid. So go to gallup.com. You can buy it online. It's a very intuitive website. There are 2 types of tests that are available. The one that is available at some $1,800, okay, $1,790. You can explore that. In this, you will get that Gallup's book, in which at the end of the jacket, there is this sort of a jacket that is there where you will get a code. Okay, and in the code, you can take the test and do the top 5. Now, the test remains the same. 177 questions remains the same. It's just a pricing strategy. So they say you pay $1,790, we'll give you just the view of top 5. You pay the full 5375, we'll give you the full view of 34, where you will know where are your bottom and where are your top. Now, when you're coaching as coaches, if your client can afford, please insist on taking the 34 in a more important in a team situation, because then you can help the client know that, look, your bottom talent themes are these. While you will focus on working on your top talent themes, do find a trade-off with somebody who has influencing talent themes like activator, communication, competition, maximizer, so that those who actually have these on top, they will leverage themselves for you and they will in exchange barter with you. And this is how you can promote teamwork a lot better. And I have an instrument here in terms of my offerings that I do for my clients, where I get them to say, hey, increase your productivity and your revenues and everything without increasing headcount. And coaching certification costs somewhere around, the last that I checked yesterday was $7,700, 6.4 lakhs. Certificate is valid for 3 years, and then you can take a renewable thing on this one. Now, if I just show you the top 34 talent themes in this one, I don't know whether you're able to still see my screen. Are you able to see my screen still?
We can't see the PDF that you're trying to open.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. Yeah, here you go. Can you see this PDF now?
Yes.
So this is how a typical report will come to you, where you'll see the top 10. And that's why they say the top 10 are your dominant, navigate the rest. These are your bottom. And this is my own report that I'm showing to you. With this report, you will get a lot of inputs. And in fact, as a coach, you get a lot of support in here that, what does this talent team mean? What would this person be all about? And what are some of the things that a person can do to succeed in their roles? How can they maximize their potential? Watch out your blind spots. So the report gives both the coachee and the coach a lot of food for thought. Now, start using this input. What if you knew that, okay, sometimes misinterpret your strong strategic talent as criticism? Yeah. Now, this could be one of the things about a Mohit Sethi, who's using strategic as one of his top talent themes. This is a watch out for him. And if he knows this, this can be a great action area for him to work upon. Now, therefore, I say that this particular instrument has got a lot to offer to any person you're working with. Very, very relevant. And I've never seen anybody come back to tell me, oh, this does not make sense. Yeah. Top 5 talent themes is something similar. I will send you the copy of this one. You can see it's a little bit more simplistic, just top 5 views. So that is what this is. Now I will keep moving forward. Just give me 1 minute. I hope you're able to see it still. Yeah.
It's coming up. Yeah.
Okay. Now, the coaching with the talent teams, this is something I wanted to take up specifically. When you go as a coach working with people as individuals, when an individual approaches you, you're looking at an individual, the formula is you help an individual move from their recurring patterns of thinking to consciously being able to use strengths. That's good enough a space. You will talk about balconies and basements. Balconies is a brighter side, basement is a darker side. So this is another talking point that you get. Typically, you may run 3 meetings, the first meeting being naming, then claiming, then aiming. So from a coaching standpoint, you can easily predict that you might spend about 3 hours. Now, if you're a coach who has been coaching anyway, you would take about 6 to 9 months for coaching anyhow. I have seen a lot of times when I've coached without instruments and with instruments, where I find coaching lead to sometimes deadlocks is when the coachee does not know. And it's okay for a coachee not to know. If a coachee is coming on their own to say, hey, you know what, I would like to explore, and then you're just kind of exploring with them, it's fine. And several, and I'm not going into the theory of it, several dimensions, you don't want to move ahead, and it's okay because it is healing. But if it is not healing time, it is about very clearly strategic, management focused, business coaching related, then I find that these kind of instruments do unlock, because in 3 conversations, you can really bring that person up to speed to be their best at discovering what can be their strengths and how they can use it in business objectives. Focus consciously on applying on own talents to build strength. When you're doing team coaching, this works like a charm because you've got a full distribution of team talent themes. Coach can build a team grid, which I will show you. This is how a team talent grid may look like. So imagine putting the entire team of your client on this sort of a grid where you can look at everybody here and then say, hey, who's got the top talent themes? Where do you have no talent or no top talents coming in? So maybe none of you are activators, command, communication. So what will happen is you'll all create, but nobody amongst you may sell. So do you find these as your challenges? And to this, the organization responds brilliantly. What I've seen is organizationally, leaders are very interested in making good action plans, especially when some leader takes up a new role. You offer them something like this, it works like a brilliant 30, 60, 90 plan. So what I do is I offer a leadership program called the New Leader Assimilation, where I introduce this toolkit for the leaders Leaders are new. They want to discover how they can be the best at what they do. They want to take the team along. This works like a brilliant place because it tells them where are their opportunity areas to focus on, where will they have blind spots, where are they the most strong, and therefore they will naturally find a lot of people spending a lot of time doing a lot of hard work and making changes on the way. For example, arranger and achiever. So there's a lot that you can interpret. You can also go coaching people in sales. So if some of your clients are sales folks, there is this book called Strength-Based Selling. This can actually work like a charm because it has full sales funnel approach, which says you start with prospecting, assessing, identifying, building, negotiating, and closing. And how does one use their strength? It also has a very nice book called The Strength-Based Leadership. Here, it is a full recommendation on leaders do 4 things: build trust, compassion, stability, and hope. And how does one person who has got achiever on top builds trust? How somebody who's got achiever on top builds compassion, stability, and hope. Similarly, if somebody is an achiever, how does the achiever prospect? How does an achiever assess opportunity? And when you explore these, people become more and more clear about their roles. Usually, our coaches are who? They're either salespeople or are they leaders? And therefore, these genres of knowledge propels your coaching like a wonderful thing. This is a typical approach that I have shared with you, which you can use in case you wish to build some of these. And now I'll go to the MBTI. I know it's very less time left. How much? Like maybe 6-7 minutes?
Mohit, we have time till 8 o'clock, but
Till
I think
8
it
o'clock.
would be
Okay,
good.
great. I was thinking of
What we
7:30.
can do is
Yeah.
like take time till 7:45, and then we don't take any questions till 7:45 only, and only after that. So you've got
Perfect.
like 20 minutes or so
Great.
over this.
So
So just want to, again, for the audiences, we are covering 2 tools. First one was Strengths Based by Gallup. And now the second tool is MBTI. We believe that both of them are in the similar parlance of personality assessments and talent assessment. So we clubbed these 2 tools. So trying to maximize Mohit's time and yours time and give you the sort of the flavor of both here. So it's going to be a little quick one. But if you have questions, if you want more details, then you can send us questions. And as I said, next Tuesday, we again have a session with Mohit on strong inventory, which is another psychometric tool. So if there are a lot of questions about this, we can request Mohit to sort of follow up from where he leaves today.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mohit. Thank you.
Sorry, Mohit. Can you just spend 1 minute on the last slide?
Yes, please. Yes, please. Absolutely. So this is when, for example, you're going ahead and approaching a client with strengths, you can say, hey, you know what, step 1 is let me do a pre-work. Put the entire team on the grid, build a customized report for how each leader is different or similar. For example, if I were to showcase, okay, Chandra Kumara versus Himanshu Dubey, what is the difference between the two? Why will they fight? Chandra will be an achiever, Himanshu will be an achiever on hard work. They both will love each other. But, a Manoj, who's an arranger, might want to change things midway, and Chandra may not be comfortable with that because Manoj is an arranger and Chandra is an achiever. Chandra wants to work hard, Manoj wants to change things. So you can actually predict sitting here that, what, are these the potential conflict areas? And by the way, when you do that interpretation, the respect for you as a coach or a facilitator goes multitudes high because you're almost becoming their tarot card reader of sorts, because you're almost saying, hey, isn't this true? Wouldn't you be doing this? So you're almost reading their horoscopes and people come back lifting up from the chairs and saying, my God, how do you know us so much? And if you just know that Chandra is in sales and Himanshu is the team member of Chandra's, you can predict so much already and almost test your hypothesis. And I do that a lot. And that is a part of the interpretation that one does. That you look at the reports, you look at possible conflicts. If a leader is kind enough to tell you, this is where I'm stuck, this is what I want, you can actually interpret the full team's report saying, these are reasons why you're stuck here. For example, you've got somebody who's Priscilla, who's at discipline, and Priscilla is leading admin, and Priscilla does not listen to anybody because she's stuck at disciplining in itself. She is somebody who, let us say, goes by problem solving, but she's also somebody with responsibility. Now imagine somebody who's got huge responsibility, high amount of discipline, and problem-solving nature. You will have, my way, highway situation come in very soon. And this, of course, this convenience of being able to look through these instruments, these names and these descriptions comes with years of practice, though, Arvind, that you'll need to be very, very comfortable with exact definitions of how Gallup interprets this. Yeah. And that's how you can showcase to the client, what does this mean, how you can go about this, reasons for conflicts and natural alignments, where is the team strong or not. And then you can do, this is like a pre-work, then you do coaching for each individual based on the client's objectives. And then you report back to a unit head saying, well, this is how your organization is, this is what it will do, this is what it won't do. So you're able to coach and consult your client really, really magically using this kind of a tool. I can spend more time on an individual basis, Arvind, in case you have a client situation to tackle. Client is new, big organizational objectives, something's got locked, something's got to be unlocked. This instrument can do that really brilliantly. Yeah. Now, once again, just before we wrap up, this is where the natural tendencies of individuals are. This is what will make people the most happiest doing what they do. But it does not really still interpret how the world will see you, how the world will interact with you, where will you naturally ruffle other feathers, and where will you find others extremely odd, even when you've not spoken to them. Okay, so for that, I believe MBTI unlocks that answer. So a lot of time in coaching, when you want more answers for your clients because they are seeking a lot of answers, MBTI and strengths really works like a charm. One is a trait-based theory. So imagine a movie. When a movie is going on, that's like the type instrument, when the movie is in the flow. But when you take a snapshot of a movie and take one picture of it, one scene, that's called trait. Okay, so trait is one of the parts of type. Okay, MBTI is a type-based instrument. Now, how does MBTI differentiate between a trait in this one? When the world is seeking to move towards either or choice, when you say, not how much you are like or how less you are like, but rather, which side are you? Are you more towards people or are you more towards things? When you want to energize yourself, would you go and talk to your own self? Will you seclude yourself? Or would you want to go more towards people? When you respond to questions like that, that is when you are really testing somebody on a type-based instrument, that what type of a person you are. Now, do you like communicating more or less? That's when you were doing a trait-based assessment. So MBTI items are not measured to really tell you how little or more behavior for a client, but rather its purpose is to divide or segment the client based on inborn predispositions. And whatever report that it tells basically showcases the clarity somebody has expressed towards that preference. So what MBTI does is it measures for psychological preferences of human beings. And the score that you get in your report is called PCI, or Preference Clarity Index. And it showcases that you have expressed more clarity. A higher score means you have expressed higher clarity of connecting to that particular, psychological, let's say, facet. And let us say if your clarity is lower, it is not a harm, it is not a problem. That means you have split your votes between either or. So if there was a direction called left and right, and I had to ask you, are you more left or are you more right? And you say, no, I'm somewhere in the middle. I stay in the middle. Then it's not wrong. You could be staying on the left. You could be staying on the right. It is fine. But staying in the middle means you've split your vote. So you're okay between left and right. So that's the Preference Clarity Index. What does it do? It simply interprets for you what your interaction with the world will be, how will you come across to others, and how others will come across to you. So when you're looking at decoding something around, I am uncomfortable with this. I do not like my mother-in-law to go into the kitchen and put the utensils in this place. I hate this. I want discipline. I want the drawers to be open and I want to find my spoon where I kept it last. If you want to really untangle those things, then MBTI certainly is the instrument to go behind. If somebody's sort of going up your nerves and irritating you, or you're not being able to unlock some of those in context of others, etc., that's where you got to go for MBTI. It has about 144 questions, takes about 35 to 45 minutes. Again, distributor in India is Anahat, and many of you may know about them already. MBTI is a very popular instrument, and many of us know Anahat team as well. Huge variety of reports that are available at differing pricing ranges. It ranges from 3,500 to up to 6,900, one of the most expensive reports. And of course, more reports are available. So I will leave you the link where you can go to Anahat's website to see the various price points and what kind of reports are available. Coach certification cost will cost you about 165,000, and you will have a certificate which is valid forever. So you don't have to keep going for a certification every now and then, just like in case of Gallup. When you coach with MBTI, the typical things that you get is the 4 psychological functions, and I'll spend maybe a minute over here. Very, very obvious that most of you would know this. Where do you draw your energy from? So are you a person's person? You focus on outside world, direct and receive energy by people? Or are you an introverted person who's more receiving energy by own inputs? I call it like, introverted people have a friend in the mind, and extroverted people have loneliness here. So they have friends around outside. So I remember when I was to talk to Kunal and we were ideating, I would go and talk to Kunal and ask him a lot of questions. And by asking only, Kunal and I will create something. Not that I couldn't create anything, I could always, but it's just that मेरा starter खत्म है. मेरे अंदर कोई starter नहीं लग रखा, तो मुझे कोई बंदा चाहिए जो मेरा starter on कर सकता है. That's an extroversion. Introverted people have a starter inside. Whenever they receive any stimulation, they first filter it through the starter. अगर starter कह रहा है अच्छा है तो वो ले जाएंगे, अगर बुरा है तो नहीं लेके जाएंगे. I mean, this is the starter analogy that I use. That if they have a friend inside who actually tells them whether you're gonna go left or right, and most likely, Kunal, you're that introversion person who would first reflect and then filter and then move. So this is the theory between introversion and extroversion, and everything else that you see below this, sensing, intuition, thinking, judging, is all influenced by this motherhood 2 dimensions. Now, the other psychological functions. So a human being would obviously receive energy by either going towards people or against. And then what do? You receive information, you get stimuli. I mean, if you're alive, you will continuously receive stimuli. So those who receive stimulation through structured ways, present realities, facts, and inputs in terms of logics, etc., they are people who are called sensing, and those who prefer this through abstraction, interrelationships, theories, imaginations, these are people who are called intuitive. So you could be an introverted sensing or an extroverted intuition, or an introverted intuition and an extroverted sensing, whichever way. And all of these combinations have a bearing on your personality type then. Now, you've received information. What do you do with this? You make decisions with the information you receive. Now, if you make decisions using logical analysis to achieve objectivity, where the world can go against you, but you're logically saying, this is how it is, this is what it is. Otherwise, if you want to take it, great. If you don't want to take it, you can go. That's the thinker. Feeler is the person who will be like a pizza, who will go and make everybody happy. Okay, do you want this served this way? You want it done this way? Let me care for you. Let me address everything that you're asking. So if every decision that I make is about feelings about others, so for example, many of us may think, yeah, we've got to pack for this, we've got to go for this particular trip. Why are you bothering about everyone who's going to come in on the way? No, I want to feel about that person, because how will this person feel comfortable? Oh, yeah, this person will adjust in the car somewhere. That person who says this person will adjust in the car somewhere is the thinker, whereas the person who's bothered about the person who's going to sit in the last seat is the feeler. And that's where the reasons for potential difference of opinion, conflict, exist. Finally, what do? How do you deal with the outer world? You tend to be organized, or are you somebody who's very flexible, adaptable, movable? So judging and perceiving function again. So again, how you receive energy, how do you get information, what do you do with that information, and then finally how the world sees you or how do you interact with the world. These are the 4 psychological functions MBTI assesses, and based on these 4 combinations or the 8 combination, it basically says you could have 16 different profile types. Yeah, and this is what the personality types that you are able to discover. And once a person is a certain thing, this does not change. Yeah, again, if you go into the deeps of it, the score on one day and another day may increase a little bit. You will never be 50% extroverted, 50% introverted. You'll always be 51 and 99. It can't be, 50-50. So it'll always be a little bit more here or there. So your scores in extroversion, introversion may swing a bit, but it'll never be 50-50 ever. That's the state of delusion that you'll come to. And you can never be 100% extroverted. If you're 100% extroverted, you'll be in some asylum. Or if you're 100% introverted, you'll be into an asylum. So that is where even reaching 100 is not naturally possible. I mean, you would be in a mental disorder state for it to be on 100 anywhere. Yeah, those people who have very clear reports of preference. So somebody says, okay, preference is middle, preference is high, preference is very, very clear towards, and I'm drawing these lines just to indicate the clarity index. When somebody's report comes across that very high E, very high I, very high T, that means you would notice feedback about this person will be extremely typical, that this person is this way, jacketed, straight-jacketed, very tough, in a certain pattern. This pattern about this person is difficult to break, so please help us. If at all, let us say a sponsor is telling you about the coaching, and if the person himself or herself is coming in coaching with you, they will express that, this is who I am, this is what I want to break, or they will be absolutely unaware of why they are this way. They will continuously tell you the world is going almost against them. They're almost finding that they're driving in a lane where everyone's coming in the opposite direction. And this is where, when you discover that their preference clarity is so high about extroversion, so high about introversion, this answers for you the reasons behind a lot of their whys. Okay, individual, you focus on why you are the way you are, why do you find others like you or unlike you, how you can operate better in scenarios that are against your preference. Best chances where you will have a great life is if you're introverted and extroverted balancing each other as partners. Yeah, but again, you got to also look at the other psychological functions. So my wife and I are introverted, extroverted. I'm an extrovert, she's an introvert. I'm an intuitive, she is an intuitive as well. But she is feelings and I'm thinking. So she is more people-oriented, I'm more process-oriented. At the end of the day, both of us are judging. So in this way, some combinations work like a charm. Some combinations can always turn things around. And you can actually find out reasons for potential conflicts and coexistence between these kind of scenarios. When you're in a team, again, how the team is distributed amongst extroverts, introverts. Now here you can actually look at, if your work is a lot more around extroversion, yeah, and you're all introverted, you will find it tricky. So it will be exhaustive. So most of the time you might have to really nudge yourselves, or you'll have to tell your brain that, okay, boss, just for this one, I'll do it. By the way, a lot of facilitators, trainers, extremely good content people are all eyes most of the time. And they do a rock solid job in terms of landing a program, facilitation, conversation, coaching conversation, without anybody getting to know that they were ever introverted. But actually they self-admit that they are introverted. But again, that's the depth, that's the clarity, etc. Who approaches structure, who's imaginative, who wants logic, who's people person, who's organized, who's casual. These are things that are very clear when you do a team-based conversation with the client around this. Yeah, that's a little bit I wanted to share. Now I'll pause and answer some of your questions.
Mohit, thanks for this. And just for the team, I have put up all the details around strengths, MBTI, and Mohit's details in the chat. You can go ahead and access that. Mohit, I want to go to one of the questions that I think Rajeshwari had asked. And this is something that we all as coaches ask, like, which is the window of not to judge people, not to go biased, not to sort of perceive them in a sort of a certain, label them,
Hmm.
and go with just a tool of curiosity.
Hmm.
When we are sort of connecting with coaches. I know that this has relevance, but could you sort of draw that link between how does the tool help create that awareness, and how so that there is appreciation of the psychometrics as well as the pure form of ICF coaching, which is like so much into,
my view, again, we can always open this to debate. My view is that, look, there is a logic to apply any of these instruments. Never be in a hurry to apply. If you have a toolkit, keep it with you, but don't be in a hurry to apply. So how I look at any coaching conversation is I see it in the scheme of 6 to 9 months of a coaching at least. First in conversation, second conversation, you're just about breaking ice, setting a little coaching, agreement with the person. You're also exploring whether they'll open up to you, chemistry meeting, goal setting, At that point, hold on. Don't rush into expressing this to the person or you getting definitive about that, oh, this person's just because of this. And this is more, and I'm going to be very explicit about this, when this is a coaching at a person's level who is really looking at exploration. Okay, so let me also, for the sake of being typed as rudimentary and very typical, okay, at the cost of being labeled that way, let me actually tell you about my experience of coaching. I go more for business coaching and business situation coaching. So a lot of time, my coaching is inspired by a sponsor. The sponsor has a organizational objective, and so is the coachee. So when an organizational sponsor who's a leader, who's leading a big unit and a big team and a big organization. So currently in a coaching situation, I'm working with a company where the company wants to go from 500 to 1200 crore. Now, at that time, I find that my organizational leader is not pleasantly situated to say, okay, you take whatever time it takes for a person to figure out who they are and what do they want to do. And at that time, I do listen to their logic and I wait for the coachee to express, okay, where does the coachee see the connection? When they build the connection naturally, I bring these instruments naturally. And I never get into the hurry. But when somebody says, okay, you know what, my only opportunity is this one day, n equal to 1. So I also do something called power of n equal to 1, which means come one coaching session and whatever you want to figure out, let's do that interpretation for that day. That day, I just interpret that particular coaching conversation with them on that instrument, which helps them to discover a lot about themselves. So do I typecast anybody? No. Do I use this instrument to typecast myself? No. I mean, come on, if we are coaches, I would urge you to just think about yourself, hold on. When the time comes right, when you are in a deadlock, when you're exploring, that is when you go back to it like a discovery. I know this is being taught in ICF, and when you go into any of these instrument coaching, you're trained the other way. And I've been trained in both the ways. So I can tell you, when I was getting trained for Gallup, the trainer said, you will end up talking a lot more than the coachee because it is about interpretation of the instrument. And when I was trained for ICF, we were trained not to speak as much as the coachee. Now, of course, you've got to create a logical balance between the two. If you believe that this derails you, ask yourself a quick question, coaching question. What is your objective? If you're too, brittle about losing the temptation and being typecasting others, then of course, coaching instruments won't work for you. Don't even go there. But if you know this, you won't use it for, going wrong. I mean, you will know the natural place where the coaching instrument is going to be utilized and for the right cause. Like my coach told me, a coachee will never discover whether you're a bad coach or not. So that is true. Whether you're going to use it consciously, logically, right time, wrong time, no one in the coachee world knows that very clearly. You only are the one who knows it. And if you're using it on bias, you know it more than anybody else. So please ask yourself, if you're seeing that the coachee is not getting anywhere, the coach is getting derailed, if the outcomes are not getting achieved, if what you signed up for is not getting achieved, then maybe, yes, both of you made that mistake and maybe corrected over a period of time. Yeah. These instruments do guide you, but they're like, as you play with alcohol, it's good to get fun, good to get alertness, good to get joy out of it. And it is also a good instrument to waste you.
Sure, Mohit. I'm just thinking like if I were to know that a coachee is ENTP or ISTJ or whatever, how does that help me from there? Where do I move the session, right? Rather than I would much rather work on changeable behaviors and we can come up with a plan. So, I mean, that's where I'm coming from. Like if I'm sitting with a report that says ENTJ, where is the coachability in that? That's what
See,
I'm
the
coming to.
coachability is about asking whether the whether this rings a bell. So Rajeshwari, if I'm talking to an ENTJ, I'm an ENTJ, by the way. Okay. So if you're talking to an ENTJ, right? The key question is that in what you're trying to solve, how does this work? In what you're trying to look for in future, do you see yourself getting into the loggerheads with people, with your own self, where, for example, coach an ENTJ and they'll tell you, boss, it's very difficult to imagine. It's very difficult to get started. I can execute very well, but I can't get ideas. Though intuition shall get me this, but unless I talk to somebody, I just can't get started. So obviously my way of getting started is to talk. Now, if I have dumb people around me and I'm getting dumb answers, then I'm getting stuck. So what do I do? Well, what do? You actually go and read up, which is against your grain. But that's exactly what the coaching conversation is all about. Would you bother to read up? Would you bother to explore other opportunities? And now that as a coach, I know, boss, you're going to be on a lonely island in this role, in this situation. You're going to make a lot of decisions all by yourself. So better know this today before getting into that scenario. And when you know this, you make better decisions for yourself tomorrow. In it, that's what we say. Now, take the instrument out for a minute. What would you do? You'd keep asking a person, what could you do otherwise? And the person will say, otherwise, I would read a book. Fantastic. Would you like to try it? Yeah, let me give it a commitment. Let's do this. What are you learning from here? Okay, come back after a couple of days. How was it? It just shortcuts that, and you're able to have much more mature conversation with that leader right up front saying, hey, this is who you are. Where do you think you'd be? So I'll say, don't typecast it, but don't wait for cows to come home when it comes to coaching as well.
Sure, got it. Thanks, Mohit.
Sorry, on the cost of being labeled as somebody very typical, I use both my instruments of training, coaching, facilitation, and sometimes I do go a little, uninhibited. So my style, but that's how I am.
So Mohit, are you saying that it's okay to use MBTI for selections, promotions, and the like?
I don't think MBTI again is a selection instrument. Very many institutes do tell you, let's do an MBTI, but MBTI is again not a selection instrument. I've not been trained that way. I wouldn't say that an extroverted person will only do a communication job better. It's how you drive energy, right? So again, competence is what you must want to check. I will talk about strong interest inventory in the next session, where I will talk to you about that. This is where my interests lie. So most likely I'll be more successful on the role. So when you're looking for selection, you must always choose what eventually will make commercial viability better for the person who's hiring. In MBTI, you will get that, okay, extroverted hai, intuitive hai, imagination will be good, this will be there. Some traits you will be able to identify. Like from this type, you will get to know the connection will be definitely good. But would you be really certain that this person will land the job extremely well because of this type? Well, another type does the same job extremely well. I have fantastic list of facilitators who are introverted, better than me. I respect them. I can't say now my votes are split. So the challenge is in the type instrument and trait instruments, you won't find logical data to support your decision. In a competence-based instrument, you'll have enough data to support your decision making. That's where I say.
Could you just define that the word competence as you use it in this context?
Competence is like analytical ability. So when I say ability, Krishna and Mohit takes a test, takes up a case study. There are some errors that you have to find out. You have to look for data and you have to look for errors in the data, some sort of skews in the data. Sometimes in Excel sheet, some dots are not written. So these are 3-digit number, but there is somebody who's written 030. Now, somebody who's got that eye for detail because the job requires you and you have the competence to look through an Excel sheet and an Excel sheet speaks to you. this coat that I'm wearing looks like an Excel sheet to you. Yeah, you're competent at that. I must definitely pick you for that role. But if you're looking at an Excel sheet, you can't make that the left side and the right side are not totaling up to the same numbers. Boss, you're not meant for the job. Then I will do my evaluation that way because I want to stay happy. Eventually your types will help me know whether while you're progressing on the role, right, how would you interact in a team? So I can guide you and coach you to say, hey, you know what, this is what you are naturally. Just explore that otherwise as well. And that doesn't hurt me to join a role and does not stop me or limit me from taking up a role. That's where the data comes in. Arvind, yes, you had a question.
I don't have a question. I just have a response to the MBTI thing. So I was in a workshop and a fairly intense workshop.
Sure.
And I was at loggerheads with another person. And for some reason, it wasn't going well. I mean, whatever we do, at the end of it, we realized that his MBTI score and my MBTI score were absolute opposites. And that was causing it. Now, the action step we took was to actually share it. And it was a fairly deep OD kind of workshop. So we could express it ourselves, and we then from then on went on to have a slightly more collaborative kind of a because we were aware that there is something that we don't like amongst each other. And I think it happens a lot of times in offices also. That you will work with somebody and you don't know why, but you don't like the person. I mean, exactly. It's just that it doesn't work. So one of the action steps is to actually go and face it and say, okay, there is something which is not right. And I want to just, put it on. So that was one comment. The second comment was that when I was working, my T was on a higher level and F was slightly lower. When I left my job and did my MBTI again, it almost became the same. And the result for that is that I am more severe on the people I love the most. So I'm more severe on them. So it was a big revelation because I used to get more angry about people around me not doing things the way logically it should have been done. So just that realization and expressing it to people that, look, I am like that, so help me, what was there. So that's comment number 2. Just one last one on the selection, and a lot of selection questions are going. I think people are very passionate about selection. I believe and any tool cannot help you with selection. It is as best 30 to 40% can support you. What one really must go with is data to support talent. I mean, if you don't have data to support what any tool is telling you, then there is something wrong. There is some jol.
Wonderfully summarized. Thank you, Arvind.
Thank you very much.
To summarize my points now.
Mohit, just a quick question. Thank you for the great session. What would you recommend? I'm struggling with Leadership 362. Gallup has one. I'm a Gallup coach, but it's extremely expensive. I looked at others, but one of the challenges is we can use Gallup for leadership. I know there's a leadership report, but is there a cheaper leadership?
I have one. So there is a Leadership 360 I do, and you can check with me. It's a very cheap tool, but the key thing in any 360, Shailesh, what I found is leaders don't want to accept feedback. And you know what? They don't want to spend too much of money in accepting something that they won't like to accept.
Sure.
So the first thing you want to do with any leader is say, hey, you know what? We'll get you some input. Experience, how does it go? So I've got an instrument which is online and platform based, which does all the reminders and report taking and all of that summary and publishing and automatically sending. So you don't have to do a lot of groundwork. Most important is interpretation. When you pick up a report and you go about interpreting the inputs to the leader, does the organization ever have the ingrained of feedback culture? If they don't have it, so it's like more open, more mature the organization, willingness to pay for it is high. New an organization, lesser exposure, willingness to pay is low. What do you do in such scenarios? Startup companies, willingness is low. 2 people started, 20 joined. Now they want to do 360 for just fun's sake. Go spend less. At least test waters whether they will be open to receiving. And most importantly, what I've seen is you land them out with a report and then they sit with it. They don't go and talk to them. So I keep telling that whether it is Gallup, whether it is 360, whether it is whatever, have you picked up the report and walked up to the person next to you and said, hey, I got this feedback. What advice you have for me?
Yeah.
So it's breaking the habits that is more critical than picking up the most expensive instrument, because all the instruments on 360 at least, they will tell you the same thing. Most likely what mistake we do is we end up picking up an instrument globally, saying it's the best, because of course they've also over a period of time figured out which questions are the best. But if you custom make questions from the bottom, that reflects the true culture of that organization. I believe that strongly makes a lot of buy-in.
Okay.
So that is a methodology I really find is working extremely well.
And the tool you're suggesting, you can actually customize some of them.
So what I do for my clients is I go custom in, I do diagnostics, create questionnaires, put it on the instrument, release it. So client A gets a different question, client B gets a different question. So there's no fight on whether I want to accept it, whether this is my industry, whether this is my people, whether this is me. No, this was built on your own company's base.
Thank you, sir. I'll reach out to you on that. It's really useful because I've been struggling with cheaper instruments.
360 is very tricky, and it's under 5K per person that I do. So it's a very different approach.
I'll reach out. And just one comment on whether to use Gallup for coaching, etc. Recently, I've been getting some work on group coaching, not team coaching, not one-on-one.
Yeah.
So what happens is the client wants to coach a bunch of people. They are sold on Gallup because their mothership.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And then they say, here's a group of 10 people. We want you to coach them only for 4 hours.
Yeah.
And without an instrument like Gallup Team Grid, doing group coaching in a pure ICF manner, I think, in my humble opinion, is impossible. So an instrument like this can open a new avenue of group coaching business, is my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you can convince your clients to buy this instrument for either 17, even, you got your clients to buy in at 1790 a book, get them to do the test. It's a fantastic group coaching instrument. If you get them to 5375, nothing like it. And as certified Gallup coaches, you'll also get a discount, by the way, for 10%.
Mohit, I have my own access website, and I get 3750 is the rate I get. So.
Oh, wow. Wonderful. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, Shailesh. All right. So looks like everybody's getting anxious to drop off and everything. Thank you so much for wonderful commentary. I hope we were able to do some justice to time.
Oh, absolutely, Mohit. I think it was just lovely. And I know so many people have messaged me separately one-on-one. A lot of questions still pending, but I think in the interest of time, we will pause today's session. Team, I have put up Mohit's comments and his LinkedIn profile, his email address in the chat. Please reach out to Mohit directly for the questions around team coaching, the 360, and other sources that Mohit has that you are very interested to know about. But yeah, Mohit, I think you put up your mobile number as well.
I'm also putting up my mobile number in case any one of you wants to reach out, and I'm also writing the email ID just in case you wish to reach out. And you can directly send me your questions as well. I'll be very happy to answer. Yeah, so you don't have to bother Kunal, then Kunal bothering me separately. Treat both Kunal and us as me and us the same. So you can do it directly, and I will respond to your questions. If it's on WhatsApp, nothing like it. I will respond much faster. So I respond a little late to emails, but very promptly to WhatsApp messages.
And I've also put up the notification for the 2 books that people were asking about, and also next week we have this session on strong inventory, which again Mohit is taking, which is on Tuesday. So do register for it. And again, like if we have open questions which are not addressed, we can definitely take them forward. So thank you so much, Mohit. I'm not saying you a conclusive thank you because I'm going to see you again in
absolutely looking forward to meeting this same group and maybe more people as well. So thanks for being such an attentive audience. I could see that the numbers didn't drop from 50 to 48, etc. So that means at least I kept the eyes and ears open.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks a bunch. Have a great day and cheers. See you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, Mohit. Thanks a lot. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.